like this? Perfect. So some air can get in. Do you see, or I'd say you can not close the window so that some air can pass, but put down the curtain so we can all see better. Okay. So in the first part, we saw all your ideas. I find it really interesting because there are a lot of ideas from different backgrounds, and every year there are themes that are really out of this world, and it's really interesting to see each one of you what the project is heading, because maybe you start with an idea and in the end you do something completely different, and that's the beauty of the process. So in the second part of today's lesson, we will talk about some illustrators, and we will talk also about their style. As you might have understood, I really encourage hand drawing in general, taking notes in an analog way, just working with your hands, not directly on computer. For me, it's fundamental to, get a grip on the project and to what you're doing. The illustration, the specific, is obviously one of the media that we can use for communicating ideas. And today we will see how different illustrators develop their style and how illustration changed throughout the years, especially in editorial products. So we're dealing mostly with a booklet. We will produce a booklet. So we want to understand how illustration was, treated inside these products. So the first thing that is fundamental to understand is that at the beginning, when printed objects were printed mostly in mechanical ways, illustration was everywhere inside newspapers, commercials, everywhere. This is, for example, some newspapers from the late, the end of the 17th century and, 18th century and 19th century. And basically, photography was difficult to produce and expensive and took a lot of time. So illustration was the easiest way to, tell stories, tell facts. Also in news, illustration was used. It was simply faster to do illustrations. And at the beginning, if you encounter some old press from the beginning of the century, you'll see that anything is illustrated, from the commercials to the different columns, articles, news. Everything is performed by hand and drawn. We take an example that I think is worth mentioning. Fashion magazines. Fashion magazines like Harper's Bazaar or Vogue at the beginning of the 20th century, they were totally illustrated. So the first issues of Vogue magazine were totally hand-drawn. And photography was not used, or was used just in few occasions because it was really expensive. It took a lot of time. So the best way to tell stories about fashion was through the hands of the different illustrators that worked for Harper's Bazaar and Vogue. There was a magazine, French magazine called Gazette du Bon Ton, that really was one of the best at the time, because it was the first time where illustrators and designers worked together in creating illustrations that conveyed both the ideas of the designer and the artistic style of the illustrators. Paul Poiret was the first designer to understand the power of illustration, and on the Gazette du Bon Ton, great illustrations produced with a technique called pochoir were published at the beginning of the 20th century. During that time, illustration was living its golden age. from the beginning of the century until 40s, 50s, great illustrators worked in Europe, in the US, in all Western countries, and that is referred as the golden age because great illustrators like J.C. Leyendecker or Norman Rockwell produced illustrations that appeared in magazine. They were commercial illustrations, like, for example, the Allo Collar advertisement from Leyendecker, or these illustrations for Life magazine by Norman Rockwell. I think I talked about the famous artist course, the course that was created by the golden age of illustrators like Norman Rockwell. He was part of this school of illustrators. As you can see, they were real artists. They worked almost in a pictorial way, producing illustrations that were really top-notch and high quality. Obviously, in fashion magazine, but in commercials in general. What happened is that at a certain point, photography started to be used as the main media for the production of images and on editorial products. This is the first cover, the first photographic cover of Vogue magazine from 1932. From that moment on, Vogue magazine started progressively to lose its illustrators, and the space within the magazine dedicated to photograph started to increase until becoming what is today totally photography magazine. So photography started to become something more accessible, easy, and cheaper to do. And illustrators were slow compared to photography at the time, and they were more expensive. So with time, they were substituted by totally photography. Also photography, obviously, and I think you have the course in photography this semester. Do you have the course in photography? Yeah. Photography is another media. Is another media with its own quality, obviously. Like, for example, I don't know if you ever saw Blow Up by Michelangelo Antonioni, a wonderful movie that I really recommend, that tells the story of a mystery, okay, but through the lens of this fashion photographer that, as you can see, working in the 60s, was trying to experiment with photography in different situations. But what happened is that illustration, starting from fashion magazine, but ranging to the different types of editorial products, was progressively substituted by photography, apart from specific situations like, for example, the New Yorker, literature magazine. This is an illustration by Saul Steinberg, one of the most famous illustrations of all time. It is so famous that it has its own Wikipedia page. And it's a cover where Saul Steinberg, Romanian illustrator, then naturalized American, shows the view from the 9th Avenue until Japan, China, and Russia. So it's a bird's eye view from the top that let us see all the world, but compressed in a single illustration. So illustrators did not extinguish with the advent of photography, but the media changed, and obviously also the editorial products that hosted the illustration changed. The reproduction of images is something that, if you already started seeing John Berger's ways of seeing, you understood that the photographic reproduction, starting from the theories of Walter Benjamin, the work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction, the mass reproduction of images flooded the market and the editorial products with new images, new ways of reproducing that. And the relationship between art and the technique and artists, illustrators, and photography within the editorial products changed forever. This is the cover by Bruno Munari for the Italian edition of Walter Benjamin's masterpiece. So we arrive, after this small introduction, we arrive to what is today illustration in editorial products. This is a layout, old layout by Francesco Franchi and Angelo Rinaldi for La Repubblica. That is an Italian newspaper, one of the most famous Italian newspapers. And inside this layout, we see that there are small illustrations. So illustration is something decorative, tiny, that is put in a specific occasion, but not often has all the attention within the page. This is Robinson, a small add-on to La Repubblica. It is about literature. And inside, as you can see, illustration is used mostly as infographics or flat illustrations that are really accessible and easy to understand. That's why I coined this kind of term that is flat press illustration. So the kind of illustration that we often find on magazines and newspapers. There is an illustration that is really easy to understand, employs few colors, and really take the space of the page in a smart way. And probably the best illustrator, I'd say, in the world, working with this kind of flat representations in digital is the Italian Olimpia Zagnoli. I think her compositions are great. They are central or kind of off-grid. As you can see, she employs a lot of geometric constructions that the vector programs like Adobe Illustrator allow her to do, but she also works a lot with colors and the contrast between them, with these vivid colors. She's one of the best, and she's often employed in commercials, editorial illustration within magazines, album covers, book covers, and she defined a style that is the one of the, I'd say, flat press illustration. There are also other illustrators working mostly in advertisement or as illustration in editorial products. This is Jacopo Rosati, an illustrator from Venice. That, as you can see, works mostly in axonometric, so it's isometric drawing with this really defined style. It's all in digital, but it works with textures and grain of the color. They give a kind of natural look to his drawings. So even if everything is first drawn in digital, it then works in analog to retrace everything and give the sense of something more natural and printed and human in a way. These kind of illustrations are often seen in magazines, in books or in newspapers to explain topics that are sometimes really difficult to understand. Other illustrators that I personally enjoy is, for example, Andy Rementer. This is a cover for a special of the New York Times. As you can see, he's using this style similar to Olimpia Zagnoli, but it's totally hand-drawn, so he's drawing totally by hand. And then he employs these flat, vivid colors to enhance his illustration. So it's a kind of childish drawing, but really polished in the line weight and the attention to detail, and also the balancing between black, whites, and all the colors in the scene. Other illustrators do other kind of drawings. This is Davide Bonazzi for a type of illustration that I call safe book covers, because they're really safe covers with these drawings that have maybe an interesting ideas, but they're not too challenging. They just express a concept. They can be good, they can be bad. It really depends on the point of view. And this, for example, is the cover of Purgatorio by Dante Alighieri, the Divina Commedia, in the Einaudi classic series, with the profile by Dante Alighieri and Dante and Virgilio looking through the soul. Or, for example, this pool that becomes the entrance to submarine world. So illustration can also be used with these witty, tiny ideas that can be used in covers and as additional to the text within the articles. This is Gianluca Folì, Italian illustrator that I really like because it has this really, I'd say, soft line in drawing his figures. The really human, also the position of the characters in the scene is really well put within the scene, and he works with analog mediums and then post-produced in digital. And his illustrations are really often used in book covers because they tell a story with just a few elements and with a style that is really elegant. And so book publishers often employ his illustrations. Other examples that I personally prefer are, for example, Andrea Serio, another Italian illustrator, really good. He works with crayons or colored pencils. And this is a book about AS Roma and the story of the passion of a kid then growing up. And he works almost in a pictorial way. So there are, illustrators that are mostly working in digital, and others that are really kind of artists of like painters. This other example, it's really interesting. It's about a trilogy called the Area X trilogy by Jeff van der Meer. I think it's from Netherlands or Belgium, if I'm not wrong. He's a sci-fi writer. He wrote this trilogy about a sci-fi scenario directly connected with environmental issues. So I really recommend it. And this trilogy, the book covers of this trilogy were drawn by Lorenzo Ceccotti, also known as LRNZ. And these covers, apart from the drawings from Ceccotti that are great, they are all done in graffiti, so with pencil and then post-produced with color in digital, also employed a really interesting solution for the cover. So the illustration was full band, was taking the whole cover of the book, and then there was a dust jacket made with plastic that was going over the cover. So it was really an interesting solution that was used only in the first edition of this book. So as you can see, illustrations sometimes pop-ups in editorial products, in this case in book covers, but we can refer to, we can call also infographics illustrations, because there is a part that has been done to produce an infographic that is kind of a drawing, if we think about it. And I would like to see with you some of the infographics by Francesco Franchi, that is an Italian graphic designer that produced the most interesting infographics on a magazine that is now discontinued. There was Il magazine connected to Il Sole 24 Ore, an Italian newspaper. And as you can see, Francesco Franchi in this spread that was appearing in every issue analyzed a different aspect of society. And as you can see, there is a drawing part, is mostly done in digital, but I will leave the link so you can see it in detail. There are parts that are digital drawing together with tables and diagrams produced in digital. So this is also to say that sometimes different media can work together just to, tell stories that are too complex to say just with a simple drawing. After these few examples to introduce the theme of illustration within editorial products, I would like to discuss a bit about the matter of style. What is style in illustration or in general? There is this book called Exercise in Style by French writer Raymond Queneau that wrote, it is from 1947, and within his book he wrote always the same story, so the story of a man getting on a bus, but in 99 different modalities, 99 different styles. So there was one written really with a lot of details, one that was really synthetic, another one that was like poetry. It's a wonderful book that I really recommend. And what Queneau was trying to tell us is that the reader, while reading this book, is led to reflect on how form affects perception and interpretation of the text. So style is not just a medium. It is a choice among many possible ones, each with its own consequences for meaning. So in showing always the same scene, simple scene, with different styles, Queneau told us that also the choices that we're doing in using different styles affect what the viewer will be understanding of the product. So if Queneau's work was totally written, some years ago, illustrator and comic book artist called Matt Madden tried to do it with drawing. And he published with Jordan and Cape a book called 99 Ways to Tell a Story, Exercise in Style, obviously. And within this book, Madden started from a first one-page comic, a man working at a computer, and then at a certain point, his girlfriend is asking him, what time is it? He's answering and opening the fridge, and then asking himself, what the hell was I looking for anyway? And this single-page comic, Madden produced it in different forms. So it's from a point of view of the writer that is telling us the story. It's a directly point of view, so we see directly the actions and where the character is looking inside the story. There is a version that is totally drawn as a mystery comic from the 50s. There is a version where he just takes the elements that give form to the comics, so the balloons, the fridge, the man, and the letters, and the desk, and sorting out like a catalog. There is the story told by if it was a map. Then a story told if it was a manga, so with some panties showing, I don't know why, and he's totally shocked by didn't remembering what he was looking at, and then a story with more panels, so more panels than they intended at the beginning, or another story told in the way of Raymond Queneau Exercise in Style. So the guy open on and off a tram in a French town. And then other examples, so the drawing on the computer and just the description, or as if it was an old painting, bidimensional painting from the past. So Madden took the example of Queneau and applied it with drawing. I think even more difficult because it's a language drawing comics that employs different kinds of media within one page. So Madden challenged himself in doing that. I forgot to bring the comic with me today. I prepared it at home and I forgot to bring it with me. This is another comic book that does almost the same thing. It's from I don't remember the name. Sikoriak is a comic book artist that one day decided to draw as a comic book all the terms and conditions from Apple products. So I don't know if you ever used Apple products, but if you scroll down, you'll see that it's like 100 pages of terms and conditions. So he decided to draw each page in a different style, as you can see, different style of drawing, telling within the balloons only the terms and conditions of the different Apple products. And I have also this one, but I forgot to bring it with me today. So as you can see, style is something that really can affect how we absorb a story and understand the content that is being told to us. And to understand what is style and how style is born, I'd like to present you this guy that is called Carlo Stanga. He's an Italian illustrator, and in this frame is taken from a course that he did on Domestika, a website with different kind of courses that I personally recommend. And within the course that I followed, that I really enjoyed, Carlo Stanga, at the beginning of the course, talks about his main references. This is the illustration by Carlo Stanga. He works with magazines, books. He does illustration books for different situations. These are his drawings. He has a formation in architecture. So as you can see, he controls really well the architectural object. But also, he employs different kinds of languages, from digital drawing, post-production on Photoshop, subtle colors, really, the shadows that are not so invasive, but give us the sense of three-dimensionality, tiny figures, colored figures, performing actions. Within his illustrations, there are a lot of references. And at the beginning of this course, Carlo Stanga tells the viewer which are his three main references. And he says, my first reference is Paul Hogarth, an illustrator, American illustrator, that for me, so for Carlo Stanga, conveyed the sense of a place through the use of color, so specific colors, vivid colors, to tell the story of a place, and also by having this shaking strokes, shaking line weight, with tiny figures, tiny funny figures appearing within the scene, he was able to, convey how people use that space in a real way. And so Stanga says, Hogarth for me is one of the best illustrators because it's able to do this, use colors and really tell a story of a place to the people represented. The second illustrator, the second artist that Stanga talks about is David Hockney. He's probably the best or the most valuable living artist today, American artist, works with painting, but also with collage and different media. And this is probably his most famous painting, A Big Splash. David Hockney is famous for using these vivid colors, also representing these scenes in a really interesting way. In this case, he's really famous for the California scenes that he was depicting, but also he is really famous for the concept of time within his paintings. So Hockney often talks about the temporal matter that is within a painting. So the time that we use to do it, it shows in the end, but also it tries to show it within the painting with solutions like, for example, this splash of a person that dived into the pool. That give us a sense of time, of something that just happened or is going to happen in a few minutes. And so Stanga tells us that Hockney is one of his references because he's able to distort space. So he can really, as you can see, do these views in which he shows a full area with a lot of colors and also giving us a sense of time. And also his passion for drawing performed to different sketchbooks that Hockney continue to produce today. So he's drawing a lot every day on huge sketchbooks where he can train himself every day. And so this is the second reference. The third reference, the last one, is the Steinberg that we saw before. And Stanga tells us that Steinberg is a master because he's the master of the synthesis. So even if his drawings seem to be childish or really simple, in the end, they really convey with few lines a lot of information. This is a self-portrait by Steinberg, so he's depicting himself. This is a gallery in Milan, and it's showing this Italian situation with people having coffee, some gestures here at the bottom of the drawing, with space that's been distorted and the tiny figures working within the scene to tell us a story. But Steinberg was also an inventive person. So the moment he saw this millimetric paper, he imagined that it was a skyscraper. So it added, tiny people at the bottom of it, with the sidewalk going behind the building, adding another building to give us the sense of proportions, some antennas on the top. The bottom part became the street for the cars, and then tiny figures with lamplight here at the bottom and the entrance of this huge building. So Stanga tells us that all these references, in a way, inspired him in becoming an illustrator, but also gave him the instruments to understand the reality and also the solutions to represent it. So within his drawings, Stanga, in my opinion, is able to convey all the features of the illustrators that we saw. So there is the colors by Paul Hogarth, the sense of the city that he is able to convey. There is the space distortion, and also again the colors by David Hockney, the attention to detail by David Hockney, also the sense of time that is passing, something happened or is about to happen. There is also the childish quality of Steinberg, with again the scene that has no fixed lines, and also this sense of really a sketchy drawing that is more human than a digital one. And also inside there are the references from the life of Carlo Stanga, so some tiles by Gio Ponti inside the scene, but also the quality of architecture that is able to represent. So that's just to tell you that the style of an illustrator, or the style that eventually you will develop in drawing or in producing something that you will draw, it is something that you have to develop with time and by studying some references that you find interesting and that resonate with you in terms of style and solutions employed. This is Antonio Pronostico, an Italian illustrator that I personally like a lot. He works totally with colored pencil. He really soft colored pencils, so that he is able to achieve this flat and grainy stroke that sometimes melts. They're almost crayons in a way, and there was a video, but I forgot to link it. And inside these illustrations, he tells that his search for finding the right instrument in drawing was a long journey. So he experimented a lot with different kind of instruments, and eventually he found this kind of colored pencils that helped him achieve his style. But it also tells that the research is never over. So it's important always to challenge themselves and always change their style to not become boring. This other illustrator is called Stefano Pane Monfeli. He's an Italian artist working in Amsterdam. And this is the art that he's doing right now, but Monfelli is from Rome. He started in Rome, and he developed his style from different references. The first one that he tells within a book that he published with Stassi some years ago. It's the story of how he started getting into illustration. His father was a how do you say it? The workers that clean the streets. So working in the streets to clean it at morning. And his father was collecting books and comics that people thrown away. And at a certain point, Monfelli discovered an old encyclopedia in the attic of his house. The illustrated encyclopedia inside had really wonderful drawings, like the one that we see here. All the encyclopedias employed, artistic drawings, like in the golden age of illustration. So he started copying them, and he really got into realistic illustration. And then after that, he really got into underground comics. So his father was bringing home comics that people were throwing away. So he started copying all the comics that he could get his hand on, and the exercise that he did was trying to replicate exactly in detail a page of each comic that he liked. And that's an exercise that Monfelli says it's really important to understand the quality of drawing, the choices made by an illustrator or a comic book artist. And it's an exercise they really recommend you to do, because in copying something really in a perfect way, you start to understand the way of thinking of an artist or an illustrator. And so combining this passion for classic illustration and comic books, he also got really into graffiti and street art. So he started doing throw-ups on trains with his gang of people wandering in the streets of Rome at night, until finally producing one of his first serialized projects called Frigidaire, dedicated to a magazine from the 80s called Frigidaire, where he started to draw on old fridges abandoned in the streets of Rome. So faces named Pane here that you can read in the streets of Rome. Eventually his art evolved. He moved to Netherlands and he started working as an artist. And within his artworks, within his paintings, we can see the quality of the classic illustrations from encyclopedia. We can see tiny bits of underground comics, and we can also see the graffiti that he was doing in the streets. So all the references, all the experiences that he did during his life, in the end, ended up within his artworks. Today, this is the book that I really recommend. It's from Damiani. It's called People Think I'm Cool, The Life and Art of Pane. And he did a lot of stuff during his life. He also opened a pizza shop on the beach in Portugal and started doing pizza. And then at the end of this experience, produced a t-shirt with a pizza on it and a pizza box designed by himself. And now today the art that he's doing is this one. So he works with, almost childish drawing. It's really experimenting a lot, attaching brushes to fans, splashing colors everywhere, working with furniture. So also to understand that the experimentation by artists never ends. So true artists never stop to do in doing always the same stuff, but always try to develop a new style and experiment with different media. So to sum up the prompts from this part of the lesson, I'd say that it's important to find your references. So if you want to start to draw and develop your style and, find a way to draw the things that you like. It's important to select some references that you say, okay, I like them because of that and because of that. Then it's important to find your own tools. So it's not mandatory that you use colored pencils or acrylic colors or anything else. It's important to find the tools that you are comfortable to work with. So that's a journey that is important to do. And the third point, the most important one for me, is have experiences. So you have to live life, discover stuff, be curious, make some mistakes, experiment, travel, have always open eyes on the reality that surrounds us. Otherwise, it's impossible to have something to say to other people. So let's see some other illustrators, and then we're over. This is Lorenzo Gritti, an Italian illustrator that he does a lot of portraits, and I really like it because he works with digital drawing. He found out that working with different layers, with different opacities, and using a brush that is like a fake, felt tip pen, and adding the colors to different layers, gave this kind of result. So he's not using any kind of line weight or stroke to draw his drawings, but he's just using the different colors that the moment they're added up, they give this impression. And this shows, for example, in this portrait where there are just 3 colors, and the transparency of the different colors gives us the final look of this guy looking in our direction, or in this illustration here below. Another funny illustrator that I personally enjoy is Lucio Schiavon. He's Italian, he's from Venice, and he works with magazines, festivals, he does posters, any kind of illustration used in editorial products. And as you can see, his style employs a colored pencil used in a rough way, a lot of colors, and a lot of different solutions. They're messy drawings, but they're really balanced and employ selected colors to convey different messages. And Lucio Schiavon arrived to this style after years of experimentation. At the beginning of his career, he had a style of drawing really similar to Lorenzo Mattotti, another Italian illustrator. The story that Schiavon told me himself was that he was trying to emulate Lorenzo Mattotti because he really loved his type of drawing. Then one day Schiavon went to Paris to meet Mattotti and show him his portfolio of drawings, and Mattotti told him, yeah, you're really good, but you're just copying me. And at that point, Schiavon, all the certainties that Schiavon had in his life collapsed like a castle of sand, and he started to question his work as an artist, as an illustrator. Eventually, he discovered that he was actually just copying Lorenzo Mattotti, and he had to really work on other references and find his own style. And that's the recent Lucio Schiavon. This is a poster, silkscreen printed poster that he did some years ago. And he started to steal from other illustrators, like, for example, Ben Shahn, that employed this almost unfinished stroke and these almost Modigliani faces within his drawings. And Schiavon eventually developed his own style. That is this one. That is a version, is like a crooked and let's say more geometrical version of Mattotti's style that we saw before. As you can see, is really soft in the lines. Instead, Schiavone works almost like a kid drawing with a heavy hand on paper. But again, the reference to Mattotti is clear, but now it's finally Schiavone. It's a style of drawing that is his own and is highly recognizable, in my opinion, and I really like it because it's less polished than Mattotti, so gives us more a vibrant look in the end. This one instead is Luca Thieri, and again an Italian illustrator, but he's working in Japan. And probably if Luca Thieri was not written here, you probably would have imagined that was drawings from a Japanese. And that's right, because he is really into Japanese culture. He studied mangas, Japanese drawing, and his drawings refer to that word, to the line weight, the quality of drawing, the colors that he employs, the references that he use are different from Katsuhiro Otomo. There is a Japanese mangaka, and his commercials. So as you can see, it's almost the same thing with the line weight and the colors employed, but also, you know, the freshness and the lightness of the drawings by Mitsuru Adachi, another mangaka from Japan, or the cyberpunk look of the mangas by Masamune Shiro, another Japanese artist. And within Luca Thieri's drawings, I think we can find all of this stuff, but within the lens of an Italian illustrator, where you can see also Fiat 500 here in the background, and a different sensibility that Thieri has compared to Japanese artists. Not better, not worse, but just different. Another reference that I really enjoy is Miguel Vila, an Italian comic book artist, that, as you can see inside his comics, he works a lot with white space, so space that help us, you know, also keep the page clean and, you know, restore our eyes the moment we see a drawing. And also the paneling that is really tidy, the colors that are vivid with shadows, and the use of geometric forms to, you know, show different aspects of the drawing. And this quality in drawing is directly an interpretation of what Chris Ware, another American illustrator and comic book artist, is already doing. So this is Building Stories, a comic book and editorial products that we will see. And Miguel Vila takes something from Chris Ware, but he does it in his own way. So showing the Venetian suburbs and inland in a really different way compared to Chris Ware. Also, Tetsuwan Atom, Astro Boy by Osamu Tezuka, that was invented in 1952, is inspired by the Fleischer animation from the 30s in America, or from Mickey Mouse. So Tezuka just used the soft lines of the drawings of the first animations, American animations, within his comics, developing a style that is now commonly considered typical of Japan. Something that was reversed 40 years later when Disney copied the story of the Lion King, totally copied from a manga by Osamu Tezuka. So it's like a circle that is closing. Tezuka being inspired by copying the story by Tezuka some years later. So the style and the ideas are something that even in time, you know, are directly connected. Marcello Crescenzi, Italian illustrator, working with these tiny lines, tiny strokes, cross-hatching to give a three-dimensionality to the to the drawings that he does. This is a cover for an album, but he also did covers for magazine. This, for example, is a Silvio Berlusconi for Fortune magazine. And as you can see, his style is it has a lot of depth with the etching style of the past. So the one that we can see in the $1 bills, or the one that was used in old etching, zinc etching with the fine point to produce, in this case, a replica of Mona Lisa by Luigi Calamatta. So it takes something from the past, quality of the past, classical quality, and he does it in a new way, fresh new way, with digital post-production and attention to detail. But everything is realized with by hand on actual physical drawings that are then digitized. This one, instead, is one of my favorites because Braulio Amado is probably one of the most interesting and innovative designers and illustrators in the world. I think he's Portuguese, but he's based in New York, in Brooklyn. And his style of design and drawing can be called anti-design because he uses counterintuitive practices to produce his illustrations and his designs. And it's difficult also for me to explain all the references and the quality within his drawings. But I recommend you to go to his website and see all kinds of illustrations that he's doing, because it's always changing style. It's always referred to a reference, obscure reference, or something that he crafted himself. This, for example, is something inspired by Ben Shahn, but this one was a tiny drawings that he scaled up and gave it this kind of sense, really rough sense. So Braulio Amado is working in great innovative ways. And as you can see, his drawings and his posters always span in different directions. He always finds new ways of representing concepts. This, for example, if I'm not wrong, was some kind of plaster, like Dido colored plaster that they put on a scanner, and they smooshed it until it showed this kind of image. So he's working with different media and working with different solutions, and always trying to do something new. This one instead is Christoph Niemann, American illustrator, that is directly linked in style and in solution to Saul Steinberg, the one that we saw before. And as you can see, Niemann every time tries to challenge the environment that surrounds him in finding solutions for his illustrations. So the mess that he has in his mind are the tiny chunks of the pencil, and the pencil becomes his nose, or the glove from a baseball player is Alpha Avocado. A girl putting some nails paint, I don't know how it's called, are tiny flame thingies, I don't remember the name, and also a carpet, it's just a playing card that is folded in half. And Christoph Niemann has a really interesting approach to illustration, because to produce each one of these illustrations that are really simple and stupid in a way, it takes a lot of time, because there is a lot of thinking to do before discovering that you can do something like that. And there is an episode from the series Abstract by Netflix, totally dedicated to him, and I think it's free on YouTube, so I recommend it. The series Abstract is not great, but the episode of on Niemann in general, I think it's interesting. George Wilesol, American artist, he works totally in digital. He doesn't draw with hands. He just does everything with mouse and keyboard. So his drawings are really let's say, not human in a way, and also the quality that he gives to the final image is something. It is like an old photocopy left in a photocopy machine in the 80s. So he works a lot on the grain of the paper, on the quality of the lines that he's trying to produce. So it's a lot of work in digital to achieve a sense of analog. And I find it really interesting because he works really hard in digital to achieve something that in the 80s was just done with basic printers on printers. So I find his style really, really interesting. And these are his illustrations. As you can see, they're really flat lines done with Illustrator and really simple colors that he employs. We're finally getting to the end of this presentation. That I remind you, the class assignment to say that you were present today were the notes on this presentation. So I hope that you took notes during this presentation because is the assignment for today. And the last question that I ask you is, which are the common points in these 4 illustrations, apart from the name future? Can you see a common point in the style employed in these illustrations? And which are the overlapping in this color palette and this one? So the fact that they are colorful, because the colors are all different. Anyone? Anyone else? Okay, yeah. And no, apart from the title, there is always future, and that's it. The typography here, the writing. But this is different from this, that is different from this. So the answer is that there is nothing in common between these illustrations. So they are totally different. There is, apart from the name future, they can be realized by different illustrators. But the truth is that they were all produced by the same illustrator. There is Tommi Mosturi. He's a Finnish illustrator and comic book artist. And his main goal is always to change drawing style. So as you can see, all of these covers don't have any kind of common field. I mean, they're all different. Mosturi is doing exactly that, trying to change every time to, let's say, enhance the ability of the viewer of understanding that there are different kinds of images. So he can pass from a drawing with pencil and crayons to a digital drawing with acid colors. Also, the paneling is changing. Then he's working with more grainy colors and vivid ones to tidy illustrations with always the same line weight, to a messy, erotic superhero comic book totally produced with Illustrator. 2 drawings that employ, different kind of grains or different kind of styles in colors and in the line weight that he's using, and also the typeface that he's using changes all the time. So he's trying to confuse us in a way. And inside a book that I forgot to bring also that one, and I will bring it next class. He produced a critical text called "The Prison of Style and a Plan to Escape: Reflections on Style and Its Meaning," and we read a small excerpt from that. So he says, "The style sticks, and its author is already recognizable from miles away. The author knows what he does and how he does it, and those who are its recipients, for their part, get what they expect. At words, style is mere surface and meanings are formed only by how the work relates to the recipient's identity and universe of experience. In the complex reality of the 21st century, people often want easy things, and so here the pure surface is branded into product over and over again. From a capitalist perspective, the easiest operation is to disable people as soon as possible, and style is, in a special way, the tool of capitalism. The market economy uses different wrappers to package the same product for different target groups. The goal is to offer something that the recipient has previously tried. Advancing new ideas, pure information, or ideological content simply disrupt business. The capitalist system likes the author and likes his style, but most of all, it likes the audience because that is what stimulates profit. The recipient returns to those works because the author's style satisfies him by offering him a sense of security. Human beings like comfort, and sticking one's head in the flames of the unknown would be particularly uncomfortable. Yet, that is exactly what both should do to learn new things. So, to finish this lesson about how it's important to develop your own style and to find new ways in telling stuff, I always finish with telling also the other side. So what Mosturi is telling us is that style, if it's always used in a systematic way, and artists or illustrators doing always the same style, they're like working with capitalist instances to always commercialize the same product. Okay, it's to get an enhancement of arts, culture, sciences, and everything in society in general, it's fundamental to change. Real artists don't do always the same stuff, but they always change to, get a grip on people and, try to enhance their sensibility. I hate people that, for example, listen to a band, and when the band started to change their sounds, they say, no, I don't like it anymore because they changed. They're not doing Arctic Monkeys. They're not doing the classic rock they used to. I don't listen to them anymore. That's so stupid because it's important to understand why they changed. They're trying to tell us something different. They evolve. And that's happening also in illustration, arts, everything. So I'm always skeptical to artists or directors, illustrators, and musicians that are always doing the same stuff. Like they get something right and they always do it until people, buy it. Like, for example, Coldplay, they did an album and they're always doing the same album. In 20 years, they're always doing the same album. So that's important to understand for me, that also in illustration, it's important to have your own references to develop your style and your critical way of thinking through drawing, but it's also important to, at a certain point, let it go and find new other ways. So the class is over, and this lesson, I find it interesting and important to discuss the themes of style and illustration, but because it's linked to an exercise that is due for the end of the course. So it's not next week. You have time. Obviously, if you want to start to work on it, you can do it, but it's for the end of the course. You can bring it directly to the exam. What does this exercise consist on? Is a short paper on an illustrator that you have to choose and pick. An illustrator, an artist, okay? Why are we doing that? We are picking an illustrator, an artist that we eventually like, that resonate with us, that we think about something that inspires us, to understand how he thinks and how he works, and understand how can we steal something from his way of working. And writing a short paper that will be really short, it's nothing, you don't have to spend months in writing that will be inserted within the process book, for me is a tool that is really important to understand the different features of the drawings of different illustrators. So let's read together the steps, the workflow in doing this exercise. First, choose an illustrator. You can pick whoever you want from any period. Once chosen, please ask for confirmation to proceed in the production of the short paper. So take your time, then think about it, then comment me and tell me, I've chosen this illustrator, this artist. Does it work for you? There is this passage just because sometimes people get into illustrators on Instagram, like, you know, weird or not great illustrators. There is really few to talk about, and maybe they pick that, but there is nothing to say about it. So my tip is always to get the best, you know, recognize illustrators, recognize artists, something that you can work on, and where other maybe critics have written something about it. Then study the illustrator's life and references. Read interviews, do some research on her, on him, understand the artist, and list all the features that make the drawings unique. So the moment you start to look at all the drawings of the illustrator, you will find out that there are some basic features in their drawings that are constantly appearing, and that's the main features of the illustrator. I don't know why there is written pick one or two. Pick one or two illustrations and analyze them in depth. So you must investigate the logic of the composition, so researching the different geometries that govern the arrangement of the parts in the space of the board, as well as of the weights, each of them, and therefore the conditions of balance generated, whether static or dynamic. Also having understood the general logic of the composition, it will be possible to proceed to the disassembly of it, thus to identify the individual parts, to then analyze their relative functioning, always keeping in mind that the parts to be identified will follow a scalar progression. So analyze the characters of the images that go to define their genre and style, depth of space, geometries of shapes and figures, texture, marks, colors, etc., and the style of the images and illustration. Assemble the short paper inside the process book, attaching the images you require for a proper communication. You are free to divide the short paper in paragraphs for a better organization of the information. An example, life, references, style, works, and analysis. Use footnotes and captions in a smart way, and don't forget bibliography. So basically what you have to do is a research on an illustrator that you like, that you pick. So choose someone that you like, that you enjoy analyzing, and in the end you must do one or two analysis on the one or two illustrations that you picked. So understand if there is some geometry within this illustration, understand if there are parts that are worth to be analyzed. I'm saying that today, I will not repeating that. Please don't use AI to write the text because it's stupid. You will not learn anything, and I'm using AI text detection, so you will fail the exam if I detect that your text will be written with AI. So please don't do that. And apart from that, the analysis, it's impossible to do it with AI, so you have to do it by yourself. This is an exercise that is due for the end of the course, to the exam, so there is a lot of time, but it's probably something useful if you want to start drawing, challenge yourself with drawing, maybe starting from a reference, studying that, and starting to replicate their drawings can be something useful. Any questions on the presentation and the exercise and overall today's lesson? No? Yeah. Yeah, or a single panel, It really depends on the quality of the illustrator. But yeah. Panel can work. Any other question?
Should we print somehow illustration?
If in the process of analysis, for example, you want to print the illustration and maybe do marks on it, to analyze that, you can do it. But the short paper must be included within the process book that is due at the end of the course. So you can do whatever you want. Okay. I can also share with you some analysis from all the short papers, so you can get an idea of the quality of the work that I... Okay. Any other question? Not necessarily. I mean, I recommend always to do everything on your notebook so you can keep track of it. I can see it at the end of the exam. Also the analysis notes that you can take in studying the artist, I recommend to do it on the notebook because everything will be there. It's like an adventure log, you know. So, but in the end, the short paper will be within the process book that is digital. So keep in mind that you will need to write it in digital. Okay. Any other question? No? Yeah? Okay. So for next week, there are no assignments. Okay. So continue to work on your idea, challenge it a bit, do research on that. And next week, I will let you know if we're working directly on InDesign. So you have to bring with you your laptop with InDesign installed, or we're just doing another lesson of analysis of editorial products. I will let you know within the weekend so you can arrange yourself. And what else? So no assignments. The only assignments to register your presence today is scan your notes of today's lesson, today's class, and upload it to the assignment that we'll put on Classroom. Okay? So if you have no notes, I don't know what you're going to upload, what are you going to upload, but that's it. Okay, so now we can see the others that didn't present before. And I mean, you can come, if you want to, you can present to the class. Who wants to leave can leave, no problem. And obviously, I'm here to answer all your questions. Any questions from home? Did you upload it to? Okay. Okay, so it's here. Okay, you can find your.
Okay, should I start? Okay, hi. Well, my idea for the booklet project, it's regards the Ciao Bella brand. I chose to do advertising, and I'm always seeing this brand everywhere here in Rome in souvenir shops, and also like on famous brands like Balenciaga. Advertising. Like the same brand that I see on souvenir shops, I also see in like Balenciaga t-shirts and like Amina Moad's purses, which is also in Sex and the City. And from my research, it's not a brand. It's just like this logo that people here use a lot. So I was thinking a lot on the I Love New York case and how it was actually this advertising campaign that really brought a lot of tourists to New York and became a mark. So I was thinking that if it's already an organic brand, why not make it become an original brand that can maybe also be sponsored or trademarked? And my idea would be to actually create the brand book of the Ciao Bella and make it a brand guide and photo shoot and product applications.
Definitely works, but I think you should do some research on if it's not trademarked. Because I think maybe some obscure, firm that is doing this kind of sketchy products,
kind of trademark
something heavy. So it could be an investigation.
Okay.
So do some time in understanding if there is actually a brand behind that, and if it's not, good. If there is something behind it, maybe it's the story of this fake brand.
Okay. Well, that could work too. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other that didn't present? No. What about you? Yeah. What about you? Okay. Okay, well, I don't have anything less to tell you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's really famous, no approval. But if you find some really obscure or not known illustrator, maybe check with me, because sometimes people find an illustrator on Instagram like Johnny.art, and they think that he's an illustrator, but it's just a guy doing drawings. So maybe find something that is worth analyzing. Okay? Okay. Okay. Thank you to everyone. Enjoy Rome and the weekend.